Lace them up, let's start the show. We're digging in with Trip. 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 We're digging in with Trip today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to be back here at the Whiskey Six, having dug in deep with Dylan Larkin here in this very fine establishment. And thank you, because carry-out orders phone's been ringing off the hook. It's like a Jerry Lewis telethon. And before we dig in with a guy that has been a true friend and mentor, anybody in Michigan, the greatness of the Detroit Red Wings, we'd all agree unanimous. Oh, shit.
Keep going.
Well, right back here where I'm most comfortable, behind the bar. A lot of those nearest and dearest would say in front of the bar for the afternoon shift, the night shift, everything that's in between. Here at the Whiskey Six. Was fun to dig in here recently with Dylan Larkin, and now momentarily we're going to dig in with just a dear friend and a mentor, a Michigan icon, two-time 50-goal scorer, broadcasting Hall of Famer. He is everything that is pure greatness about the Detroit Red Wings and what is great about being a pure Michigander, Mickey Redmond. So we're going to dig in. We're going to pull out our shovels with Mickey. It might stick. Mickey. Here in just a minute or two. But before we do, the Whiskey Six hosting us once again. This place, especially when it's cold outside. Baby, it's cold outside. I don't have a karaoke future. But you want a nestling, cozy spot. And unfortunately, the doors can't be opened because it's safety first right now. But when they are, boy, you should be lining up to come to this unique place here in Grosse Pointe. But we need to all band together because at normal times, Whiskey Six is a shoulder to lean on. So we need to make sure to support this great establishment. Whiskey6.com to see the entire menu. Any type of beer and wine is available for takeout. 313-939-2403. Fortunately, the phones have been ringing off the hook since the Larkin episode, so we need that to continue. Let's all band together, and let me tell you, your stomach, your whole digestive tract is going to say thank you, because the food is that good. So make sure that we dig in deep for the Whiskey Six. Before we get to Mickey Redmond, as we always do, encourage you to be regular, be honest, be thorough with your communication on our audio and YouTube platforms to let us know. Give us a grade. Holiday season, how are we doing? New Year's resolution, how can we be better? Digging in with Trip 2021. And then also our merchandise, digintrip.com. We're in December right now. Deadline of New Year's Eve. Half of our sales going to a place about 15 miles down the road in downtown Detroit, the Pope Francis Center. People who need our help most. So hopefully you like our swag and you recognize that whether it be hats, winter line that includes hoodies. I just got my mom a throw blanket. And my dear, dear friend, little Tony Galbo, who happens to own Whiskey Six, he was the guy right down the road from here that said, Trip, why don't we have visors? These are his baby. And let me tell you, these visors are strong. So digintrip.com for a great cause, the Pope Francis Center. Without further ado, in these nestling confines of this great establishment, let's now dig in with a Michigan and Detroit institution, Hall of Famer, Mickey Redmond. Well, Mick, this is a special of an episode as I've done what you've meant to me. I grew up watching you, but I have to start, being my dear friend, my mentor. I have to ask you. You have your PhD. How do you define digging in?
My PhD on digging in, I guess would be doing whatever it takes to get the job done. whatever that is.
You've done it in your career as a Hall of Fame announcer, away from the rink, and that's where you and I have had some of our best times. You know, you're such a humble guy. You don't think about it like this, but you're a Michigan icon. When would you say, because you were a Montreal Canadian, when would you say, if there's one moment that you can point to where you first fell in love with Detroit, the state of Michigan?
Boy, that's a tough question. I was traded here, I believe it was January 13th, 1971, almost 50 years ago. I don't know that there's one moment that I can pick out of all of them, but what I do know is that I very quickly learned there's a lot of charity events that I had to get involved with, or was asked to get involved with here, that we didn't have up in Montreal, up in Canada, for a lot of the causes that are obviously so great all over the world. But so you'd go out and play golf, and I had no idea how to play golf. I never took any lessons, didn't play much, just scrambled around. But I got to understand really quickly that the population of Detroit, I call it Detroit, in the area, it's all one, in the state of Michigan, they opened their doors, their businesses to players off the field, off the ice, and said if you want to work as hard there as you did on your field of play, we give you an opportunity to go to work. It was incredible. So obviously, we all know that people make a place, and it's the people of Michigan have just been unbelievable, and especially in our business, the hockey business, being an Original Six. It doesn't get any better than that. It's been an incredible ride for me since retiring from playing back in 79 or 76 or whatever it was. It just couldn't have been better. And the people are just incredible. I love Michigan. It's become home. And I guess that's the answer I would have to your question. Maybe I became an American citizen, I don't even know, 20-some years ago. And it's home. And so I'd say maybe that point when I got my citizenship and became a dual citizen, so to speak, would be the turning point. But I can't imagine now being anywhere else than Detroit and part of the Red Wings and the state of Michigan.
You know, I was just thinking about it because, Mick, I'm just about to turn 47. So I was born in 73. And I swear, and you're very good friends with my mom, who affectionately goes by, her name's Marilyn, but goes by Mickey. Mm-hmm. And when my dad was still alive, when we'd play golf, you know, used to come over and visit him when he had home care. Big Mickey fans. Yeah. Anyway, so I came December 20th, 1973. I swear I came out of the wound and I said, Mickey's going to get 50 this year. And you got 52 in 72, 73, and then another 51 in 73, 74. What do you remember about your 50th in both of those years?
I believe it was year one. And I think we were in Montreal on a Thursday night. And I'm not sure how many goals I got that night, but I got a goal that was called back. That would have been my 50th. I believe it was against Ken Dryden. And obviously disappointing, and by the Monday morning they had pictures in the paper that the puck had gone over him, past him, in the net, bulged the net, back out, and of course it, you know, too fast for no replays to see, so no goal. The good news was that 2 days later we were in Toronto, and my parents were able to come to the game from Peterborough, and I got two that night against the Leafs, 50 and 51 I believe it was. And they got to see it. So that was very, very special. So it all worked out in the long run for the right reasons. And, of course, in those days, people didn't get around like they do today. And I think my mom and dad may have only seen me play once in Montreal live. And that was David Molson's wife, Claire, I believe it was, orchestrated that whole thing to get them to Montreal. And because people didn't move around much, it was pretty special. So Toronto, only 90 minutes away from Peterborough, my home, they were able to come in and and see that night, which was very special. So that was the first one. The second one was at home, I believe, against the Rangers in Jockerman. And it was a long slap shot from way out. Yeah, and that was special. The only disappointment on the first one was that I didn't get to do it in front of Red Wing fans. But I got it the next year at the Olympia, so that was good. We covered them both in 2 years.
That's sweet. We're either one in Toronto or against Jacquemin at home, patented right by the ears?
No, actually, one of them in Toronto was a deflection off a shot by Gary Bergman way out in the slot. And Ronnie Lowe, who my partner now, Ken Daniels, will say is my twin.
Yeah.
He was the goaltender that night. No, there was no high hard ones that night, but that's a rarity. Usually they were. If they didn't catch the goalie in the ear, they hit the glass.
If I was a goal scorer in any era, I would be, if I ever had the audience, I would be picking your brain to figure out how I could improve my goal scoring ability. If you were to give a blueprint, physically and mentally, and what percentage is God given, but what it takes to check the boxes to be a goal scorer, a finisher, what would you say?
Well, the first thing I would observe now, we've had goaltender coaches for a long, long time. Video, goalies are watching video, they're studying the shooters. I don't know how many shooters are studying the goalies, and I think they should be. They should have been for a long time, and picking out tendencies. And in our day, the goalies went down a lot more. Actually, they stood up a lot more. I got it backwards. Today, they're down all the time. And top corner, yeah, that's a moneymaker for me. But I'll tell you a story. One time with 1971, right after I came here, later that spring, Gordie Howe and I were on the Olympia ice together after practice. And both right-hand shots. Nobody else out there but the goalie. And we were about 15 feet out, 20 feet out. And we're standing there getting ready to shoot in your position. And Gordie said, "What do you see over the catching glove over there on the left side?" The left-handed catcher. Now, you can really, being a goalie, you can relate to this. And I looked over there from my position, and I said, well, maybe 6, 8 inches, between his arm and the goalpost. Gordie said, yeah. Now hold on to the knob of your hockey stick and switch your position in behind the blade and the puck. Now what do you see over that left shoulder and next to his left arm? And I went, oh my God, there's like 18 inches over there. And Gordie looked at me and he said, the way you shoot the puck, you put it there, they're not going to stop it. It's always there, but you can't see it. What a piece of information from one of the greatest goal scorers to ever play this game as a young player for me. It was incredible. So, yeah, I guess there was psychology involved. Didn't even think much about it in those days. But I would say that, the goalie's going down so much today. A lot of the goals are scored up in the top corner. I'd be working on that shot, and I did in my day. Every day, every day, every day. Practice, practice, practice. Because my dad said, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And if you want to be one of the best, you got to keep going at it every friggin' day.
Wow, that is cool. You mentioned Gordie. You bleed Red Wings blood. I asked you about when you first felt, like a pure Michigander. When would you say that you truly first felt Red Wing blood in your soul and your DNA?
I would imagine when we had Danny Grant here. We had Marcel Dion was drafted because we had finished poorly before that. We were in 2 7-team divisions, I believe. We missed the playoffs 2 years in a row by a point or two, all in the last weekend of the season. And I think those teams there, although our ownership was really non-existent, was a Norris regime, and he was an absentee owner. It didn't work. We had good hockey teams here and should have done better, but we didn't. And that's the way the cookie falls sometimes. But I think then you had the feeling of the culture of the Detroit Red Wings and Howe and Lindsay, Abel, Del Vecchio, Gary Bergman, Nick Libet, those guys in the past, Blackjack Stewart, Jimmy Peters, who started the Red Wing alumni in 1958. I mean, the history of this hockey club is unbelievable, which, you know, is understandable being an original six. I've often said, there's only 6 of us. They don't make any more. So it's very special to be a part of an original six. And that's not to downplay anybody else that's in the big leagues going on 32 teams now. It's a very, very special brotherhood. And the game of hockey as a whole, not just the Red Wings, is very, very special to me. And it means a lot to a lot of people. And it brings out a passion in people all over the world that's second to none in any sport that I ever see.
What do you remember? Because God rest his soul, not so many years ago, you ended up speaking very eloquently at Mr. I, Mike Ilitch's funeral. What do you remember about the first time that you met Mike and Mary and Mr. and Mrs. I?
You know, I was just talking to somebody yesterday about that, about Mr. and Mrs. I. And I used to fly with them a lot. Dave Strader, my original partner here in 1985. And we were on their private plane one night. I don't know, we were coming back from the West Coast, probably Edmonton. Played them a lot in the day. And in those days, cigarette smoking on airplanes was pretty prominent. And we got up in the air and lit up and had a ginger ale going. And Mrs. Ilitch said to me, "You know, Mickey, Mr. I doesn't always like everything that you say on television." And she was sitting right next to me, and Mr. I was across on the plane, and Dave Strader was over on my left, and Dave went, "Oh my God, where's this going?" And I said, "Well, that's fair." I said, "But let me tell you a story." I said, "I go around this league, and all I hear from my peers, play-by-plays and color guys, is my owner told me to do this, my owner told me to do this, and don't get on the referees, and don't get on the commissioner, and you got to do more of this, and you got to do more of that." And I said very proudly, I tell those guys, never once have my owners come to me and told me I have to do something or not do something, and that's a compliment to you and Mrs. I. And I looked over, Mr. I was just nodding his head. And we got off that plane about 5 a.m, and Strader said, "Oh my God, I can't." I said, "You know what, Dave? The moral of that story is it's true."
Yeah.
It was true. That was Mr. and Mrs. Ilitch. They were. I told this guy the other day, in a world where it's gone crazy now, but they said to me one night, "Hey, Mick, we don't have for some reason, they didn't have a ride home, and they live about a mile from me. Could you drive us home?" I said, "We don't mind a pickup truck, no problem." They jumped in my pickup truck. I dropped them off at home. I mean, it's crazy. But they were just regular people. And the one thing about the Ilitches, the word family, if you look up the word family in the dictionary, the Ilitch's picture will be next to it. It was all about family, boy. Unbelievable. And it still is. Very, very special group, for sure.
God, I'm picturing that plane. Darts, smoky atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Icing from the inside out.
How about this one? If you ever got a chance to fly first class back in the day, and around here, Northwest was the one. Yeah. And they had 3 rows of seats, right? Yeah. So rows 1 and 2 were non-smoking, and row 3 was smoking. Like, really? Who's going to get protected, right? That's crazy. I mean, you think about it. Yeah. Really? Oh my God.
You and I were playing golf a couple of years ago. And by the way, never seen a guy average, I want to say probably 1.25 putts per hole, just casually putting, storytelling with a 56 degree and making. I mean, you had less than 2 putts on the round with a 56. Uh-huh. But one of the things you told me that day, because I grew up with you and Dave Strader, and your relationship with Mr. and Mrs. I, you advocated for Dave when he was in Adirondack, did you not? Tell me about how your partnership came together.
That came together. Jimmy Lights, who was the Ilitch's son-in-law at the time, called me and he said, I was working for Hockey Night in Canada and CBC up in Canada. And I had worked with the Red Wings in '79. We did a bunch of pay-per-view stuff. And he said, I'm going to bring a kid in from Glens Falls. He's never done the NHL before, and he's never been on TV before. And I'd like you to be the guy that holds it all together and gets him acclimated and teach him how the ropes. And I said, okay, I'm in. So I basically left hockey night, moved back home so I'd have a home team. Because you're working for a network, you never have a home team. And that's how the whole thing started. And for 12 years, we had a great run. And then Dave had his dream to be a national announcer. He got that opportunity to go to ESPN and so on and so forth, and he did. Unfortunately for him at the time, we won the cup the next year. Bad timing. But he turned out to be a very special guy, very humble, very respectful of the game and people who had played it, and an excellent play-by-play guy for sure.
What did you enjoy most about your time with Dave Strader off the ice? Because, Mick, that's one of the best parts of our friendship is you'll teach me and I pick your brain and get your direction with regards to the great game that hockey is. But we talk about an abundance of things.
Yeah.
Dave, off the ice.
Geez, I don't know. I guess, if you get the right partner, you get along well, both on and off the ice. You socialize together and you share, your love of the game, really, a lot of that. And it can go anywhere. It's not always that way. So I've heard from, some broadcast teams over the years, and I'd say most of them probably other sports that guys not necessarily get along too well or don't like each other. I can't imagine that, working with somebody you don't like. But we shared a lot of things. I'll never forget when we were playing Edmonton in I think it was 87 and 88. And we're in the conference final. We gave the Oilers all they could handle. We had Probert and Koser. Probert had a great playoff. They had all the greats over there, Gretzky, Messier, and the gang. And Strader his wife Colleen was having twins. And we were going to Edmonton. And how did that work out? Dave stayed home. The twins were born. He flies out, and Mr. Illich, the game was going to start, and they had another guy ready to do play-by-play. And Mr. Illich got up to the pilot and he said, call the city airport downtown Edmonton, get a helicopter out here, and they helicoptered Strader to the rink. No. He made air by 30 seconds. Oh, yeah. That was the Illiches again. It was unbelievable. Yeah. Everybody was healthy, and it's amazing stuff, Stories like that with that Illich family could go on forever. That's the kind of stuff they did, going the extra mile for the human interest in all of what we do, because it gets lost in the shuffle. It's big business, pressure everywhere you go, all the stuff, the big money the players are making and everything like that. That human stuff gets kind of washed away, and it's too bad because there's a lot of great stories, I'm sure, in every organization just like that.
Wow. And the helicopter, was that game 1 in Edmonton?
I don't remember. No, I don't think it was. It might have been game 4 or 5. Well, where would we have started? I don't really remember. We were 1-1.
Because, Mick, I remember, sure. I wanted to ask you because our mutual friend who was the Hurricanes goalie coach when they won the Cup, Greg Steffen, I just remember how good he was in game 1 because hadn't Jacques Tamir maybe used Glenn Hanlon in the Toronto series? And anyway, sure. It's just I was because I'm watching you and Dave at this point, having no idea that we'd become close friends, obviously. I was just a young kid, aspiring hockey player. So I remember that series very well.
Those were good days.
Great days.
There were good days for a lot of reasons. Socially, the world was a much different place than it is today. I'll keep it that way. But the Bruce brothers, Probert and Koser, boy, oh boy. Those days were unbelievable. I had to live through that and watch all that mayhem that was created. It was excitement. It was unbelievable, and that was the beginning, really, of the Red Wing run that went from roughly the late 80s to 2010, Yeah. It's incredible. Almost 30 years.
Do you remember anything early on that strikes you particularly memorable when you first got to know a teenager in Steve Yzerman? Anything sticks out?
I remember Steve coming here, maybe 160 pounds, getting pushed around his first year. Steve wasn't supposed to stay here. They told him they were sending him back. He showed him otherwise. He forced them to just keep him. They couldn't send him back. He was the best player on the ice in practice. He was the best player on the ice in the exhibition games and the best player on the ice when they started the season. They couldn't send him back. And I believe Jimmy D, he told me, I already told Steve, we're sending you back. We just want you to get some experience. And Eisenman said, I don't think so. And that was the start. That year, he got knocked around quite a bit, as you might expect, only being 160 pounds. And I remember over the summer, he put on about 20 pounds. I'm guessing at that, and he was able then to stand his ground, and he learned how to use the equalizer, the stick in his hand, to protect himself from the tough guys running at him, trying to knock him down because he was so damn good. That's what you have to do as a player like that. So it was a big transition for him, just getting his feet wet in the NHL and getting to understand how to read the tea leaves and what was going on out there. So obviously the rest is history.
One of your patented says, how would you define how you read the tea leaves? Always wanted to ask.
How do I define how you read the tea leaves? It's seeing things between the lines that aren't obvious, surmising things, expecting the unexpected, trying to figure out what that guy's thinking. The great players, I think, are always 2 to 3 steps ahead of everybody else. They got to figure it out. And, they're acting. They're not reacting. They've already got it figured out, and if it doesn't work, we'll do it another way. They're just boom. So when you read the tea leaves, trying to figure it out. It's like a chess game. How do you figure it out? Who's going where? What's going on down the ice? If I get it right now, where am I going? I try to, when I work with young kids, I'll try to get them to understand. You don't get the puck and then try to figure out what to do with it. You got to know what to do with it before you get it. If you don't get it, fine. And it's always constant motion. That's why it's such a great game. It's always every second it's changing.
Yeah.
And if I transfer that into my job and your job as colormen in the game, somebody will say, well, are you all prepared for the game? I go, well, yes and no. Because every time they drop the puck, it's a different script. Same game, different script. That's why the game's so great. You never know what's going to unfold. It's the greatest thing in the world. You can't prepare for that as people think you would. You got to know names and places and all that stuff. But the bottom line is, anything can happen when they drop that puck in the NHL.
It's the biggest difference, would you say, in the way you approach? Is that it? Or the biggest difference, improvement, whatever strikes you of how you're a different color analyst now than you were in the 70s when you first started doing it?
I don't know that I'm a whole lot different. I always look for the lighter side of the game if it allowed itself. You don't force it. But I think back in the early 80s, my sense of humor probably showed through, was a bit before its time. But the bottom line in our business is we are in the entertainment business. You can't make chicken soup. You call it like it is. For your credibility's sake, you need to do that no matter what that call is. You got to know how to deliver bad news sometimes. But that's the way it goes. And fans, I think, appreciate, even if you have to be hard on your own players or your own team, it's fair. And as long as it's delivered without malice, hey, nobody should have a problem with that. And I think people respect somebody who does it that way because it's credible. And you're not being one-sided. You're not being a homer. We're all homers to a degree. We love our team. We want our team to do well, first and foremost. But that great game is really what drives us all to be a part of it and do the best job we can every time we walk behind a microphone.
As anybody can get through the good times. You were talking about a teenage 160-pound Steve Yzerman a minute ago. Then as the captain of the team, lofty expectations for any team, let alone a historic Original Six franchise. What impressed you most about, it's whether it was true or a complete fake news? Steve was rumored to, after some playoff failures, maybe he'd be available to other teams. As a fan of Steve Yzerman growing up, I'm hoping that he was never available. But what grabbed you as a guy that digs in that allowed Steve to stick with it, respond to adversity, and then we know how the script unfolded after that?
Probably his will. He just, he had a push and a will that was second to none. Played with injuries that a lot of guys probably couldn't or wouldn't. But it was in his chest. It was in his heart. That the heart to play the game and be as good as he could be. And I think that's what drove him. And I think the turning point, he was already a great player. But when Scotty Bowman came in and I think convinced Steve that if he was more defensive-minded in certain situations, it would be better off for the group. And Steve bought in 100%. And, of course, the rest is history. Away you go. Cups, cups, and cups, you know. Because he obviously was a great point getter, 65 goals, 160 points, whatever it was. Pretty amazing. But I think when he became a full-blown two-way center, and he did, boy, oh boy, that's what really put him over the top, you know. Incredible to watch. And he dug in, face-offs, blocking shots, killing penalties. It was amazing. So that transition, I think, was really key for him, and it brought him what he suffered so long not to have, which was the championship.
Yeah.
After 95 and 96. The finals against Jersey in 95.
Yeah.
We got embarrassed, 4 straight. Couldn't defend. 96, 132 points, knocked out in the third round. No good. It's like we're never going to get it. And all of a sudden, bang, March 26, 1997, the brawl with Colorado, the comeback win in overtime, and boy, oh boy, the train was underway. It's amazing.
The rivalry with Colorado, have you, from your playing days to your Hall of Fame broadcasting days, is it as good of a rivalry as you've ever seen?
I'd say in modern day, yeah. I mean, playing for the Canadians, you know, the Bruins and the Canadians was ridiculous. Yeah. Now, different day, different society. Christ, we had 6 bench clearing brawls in one game in Boston. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was ridiculous. Can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. 6.
I mean, John Ferguson, who was one of my mentors in Montreal, I mean, they had Teddy Green, Big Bad Ted Green, and the Bruins were, boy, the Flyers.
Yeah.
Big Bad Bruins. And boy, they were. And, you know, in those days, the first guy that jumped on the ice, you know, to join the fights got a $100 fine. So when the first brawl broke out, I recall, Fergie jumped on the ice, and of course he got the $100 fine, and then not 10, 15 minutes later, another brawl breaks out. So Fergie's on the bench again, so he can't go again. He gets suspended. So what does he do? He runs down the end of the bench, picks up the spare goalie, Ernie Wakely, throws him on the ice. He gets the fine, and then he follows him. He's okay. He's safe. It's crazy. So 20 guys in the team, $5 a piece, there's the fine. Crazy. Oh, God. Nuts.
When?
Your life was in your hands. In the Boston Garden, I'm here to tell you. Oh, my God.
Oh, what was the best? Is there one tilt, one altercation that stands above all others with regards to your playing career?
Oh, there's a few that weren't pretty. You know, it was, you know, I want to say kill or be killed at times. It was a pretty vicious game. And I've said to you before, the saying was, if it's you or me, it ain't going to be me. I ain't going down. So you do whatever you have to do to protect yourself. And, yeah, we had lots of close calls. But no point in mentioning names at this point in time, but I was fortunate to come out on the right side of it. And that's how you survive. My dad was a hockey player, played and a tough guy. And he often said, you and your brother Dick, you got the talent in the family. He was a fighter, a defenseman, a tough guy. He played for the Whitby Dunlops in 1958. He won the World Championships over in Oslo, Norway, against the Russians. He knew the psychology of the game and toughness and what it took to survive. And he often used to say, it's tough to make it, but it's tougher to stay.
Yeah. So
there was lots of that in those days. It was really hairy and crazy and wicked and a lot of times very, very dangerous to play the game in those days. There were some pretty wild individuals flying around the ice that you had to know where they were all the time, trying to take your head off. And that's the way it was.
And you know the galvanizing team impact. And you mentioned the brawl, getting over the hump in 97. You know, you were calling the game. Like, how big of a deal was it? I know Dave Lewis was our assistant coach in Carolina for a while. He thought it was the moment. And did he tell me correctly? Did Igor Larionov start it, which was even better? I mean,
He
what
might
do
have
you
started
remember
with,
about it?
Peter Forsberg.
Yeah.
Peter Forsberg. Peter Forsberg. Before he went to Nashville. But it all started with Draper and Lemieux.
Yeah.
The year before.
Oh, I know that.
So
but the actual.
That's what really was the spark that started the fire. Yeah. And it was something else. Yeah. I just saw a picture somewhere of Osgood laying on top of Patrick Waugh right in front of the Red Wing bench. And I think it's Shanahan standing on the bench, looking down and laughing his head off. Like, this is great. Oh, God. It was crazy. Crazy.
I mentioned Igor Larionov. We were talking last weekend. It was just a thrill because Stanley Cup Finals and the sweep in '98 against Washington. And I was fortunate enough to get you on the television, you and Dave Strader, because you were doing the international feed,
right?
The National Hockey League, and you were just raving about how good Fedorov was in that run. I want to ask you, Mick, what was it like in the booth in Calgary when you saw Scotty put the Russian five together in that game?
Well, we didn't know what to expect. I had played against the Russians in 1972 with Team Canada, and we knew that back then they didn't like to shoot much. They didn't run the net. They didn't run the goalie. They didn't screen a lot. They were so skilled, pass for the perfect one-time shot. I don't know the numbers, but I would guess the great Russian teams back in the day probably didn't even get 25 shots a game. We would have got 40 because we were shooting it from everywhere. But when he put those guys together in Calgary, all of that came back. And I believe the stat sheet shows the Calgary Flames at home that night got 8 shots on goal. They never touched the puck. It was ridiculous. And I think at one point in that broadcast, I said, you better get the Dramamine out because these guys are going to be dizzy real fast. They're going to get seasick. It was incredible to watch. They didn't like what they saw. They just went back and started over. It was like totally against everything we were ever taught. We were taught, as you know, in our system, dump the puck in, go and get it, which I never agreed with because I would go, I don't understand this. Why are we giving it away and then we got to fight our brains out to try to get it back? It doesn't make sense to me. I didn't know the answer to that because in those days you didn't question what you're being told. It just didn't make sense to me. And then when you watch those guys, you went, there we go. That's the part B that I didn't know about. Well, let's just start over. Why not? Nobody did it. But they did. It was amazing. Amazing. And that group of 5, every one of them had a special trait about them. Vladdy was an absolute warrior, about Konstantinov. Battle anybody and knock your brains right out in a good body check. Fetisov moved like a tank, but he had moves that would just mesmerize people. He'd make a quick body move or a fake, and they were gone, and he perfect pass up the middle. He was unbelievable at drawing forecheckers to him, moving the puck by. Fedorov was a triple thoroughbred. Absolutely incredible that he could take a game over with the skills that he had and the power. Of course, Larionov, as you mentioned, the professor, the thinking one, a great chess player, played the game like a chess man. Kozlov was what did they call him? He was like a water bug. He was tall but skinny, and he was elusive, and he could score. Those guys were just unbelievable, and to be able to have that memory is priceless for me, and any Red Wing fan that watched that happen. It's amazing.
To hear you passionately recall it, wow!
I saw lots of it.
Yeah,
day in and day out, and you know the thing about all that is, as much as they all knew what was coming, they couldn't do anything about it. Constant flow and movement. The guy without the puck was the key. If you got any young hockey players, boys and girls listening today, that's the key. Never stop skating. Get open so the guy with the puck can give it to you. Get open for that person. Get open for your teammate. Give them an option. Keep moving.
What? Mick, and I do not want to generalize, but I've talked to players through the years, on Stanley Cup winning teams that have wondered aloud, is it difficult to win with Russians? I'm not going to form an opinion on that because you can look at teams that have won. Why was this, aside from what they could do and hold on to the puck and transform the game, in your thought process, you were ahead of your time. But why did they fit so well here within the Red Wings organization, the city of Detroit?
It's a good question because, obviously the thought process was Europeans are soft. They can't compete. Way back.
Yeah.
But a few hockey fans remember Boreas Salming from Sweden. That poor bugger, he got killed out in that ice, but what a great hockey player he was, and he was able to battle through it.
Yeah.
A lot of guys couldn't. They couldn't take the pressure and the stress. And of course there was a lot of pressure on them because they were European and everybody put them down. Obviously unfairly because they didn't know what they were getting.
Yeah.
But to your point, we were very fortunate to get the Europeans that we got. I don't know any other way to put it. But it's no different, whether it's Russian, Canadian, American, Swedish, Finns, Czechs, I don't care, whatever they are. Not everybody's perfect, but we got 5 individuals that were absolutely perfect, and that's unheard of, for sure, But they were all unfairly criticized just because they weren't normal in the sense of being North American. Very unfairly. But it sure woke the world up. Anybody who's a naysayer about a European player and their ability to play in the game, they got a big time slap in the face. Like, really? How wrong can you be? So, anybody who's reluctant to praise the Solanis of the world or all these great Europeans, they don't belong in a game of hockey. They're not seeing the right thing.
You mentioned, I loved him as a kid, Boreas Salming, a Swede. What a defenseman.
Yeah.
Nick Lidstrom, do you remember any point for him analyzing his games, what you accomplished in the league as a player that you said, whoa, got a good one here?
He reminded me a lot of J.C. Tremblay in Montreal in our day. He was on his 2 cup teams that I was on. Hardly ever hit anybody. Hardly ever got hit. Could take the puck away from people one-handed and like he had a mask on, like stealing it. Perfect passer. Mobile. It's amazing. And that all came between his ears, And when I was watching that 98 game there not long ago against Washington, Lidstrom and Murphy were together on the blue line a lot during that game. He was just, his brain was 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And he could strip the puck from you without taking a penalty. Took very few penalties. Amazing man. And we just saw time and time again, same stuff. There's nothing they could do. They could rarely hit him. Because you're smart enough to avoid the situations to be put in without jeopardizing how the game was played effectively.
Interesting. I know Scotty was on Digging In a few months ago, and he's told me before that had it not been for the tragedy with Vladimir Konstantinov, that he thinks that he would have maybe plucked 2 or 3 of Nick Lidstrom's Norris trophies.
No question about that. He should have got the Norris the year before. I'm trying to remember. I just saw who won it. Was it McInnes or somebody the year before? No, it might have been Leach. Okay. Great player in his own right. Okay. But there's no question about that. No question in my mind that Vladdy would have won that Norris trophy a couple of times for sure. He was that good. And this guy was a captain of the Soviet team. Could have captained anybody over here too. He had a will to play the game like nobody's business. There was no wall that Vladimir Konstantinov wasn't going to go through to get the job done. It's amazing.
Knowing you the way that I know you as a person, and you always give the players, their distance, whether it be in the plane, hotel. It just strikes me that you and Vladdy would have almost brothers from another mother. I mean, different parts of the world. But
Well-
anything behind the scenes that, bonding moments, the two, because you just seem to be so similar.
I used to interview all those guys.
Yeah.
And they're always very reluctant in the early days or coming out of that system.
Yeah.
They didn't trust anybody. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
So it took a while to get their confidence. But I think Vladdy might have been the first one that I said to, and I thought it was in Calgary one night too. I don't think opening. It might have been the night they were together. I don't remember. And I said to him, it was Christmas time. It was almost this time of the year, and I said, Vladdy, why don't you sing Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to everybody back home? And he said, half English and half Russian, whatever, doesn't matter. Just have some fun. The fans want to see you guys without your helmets on and without going up the right side, shoot, score, all that crazy stuff. Let's have some fun. And I don't think so. And so finally I said to him, listen, here's what we'll do. We'll tape it. And if you're not happy with it, we won't run it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Okay. So we get through this thing, and he shambles through that song, I wish you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all. It was hilarious. And we got all done, and the camera shut down. He looked at me, and he had a smile on his face, and he said, how's my hair, Mickey? How's my hair? I go, it's fine, Daddy. And he goes, do you think they're going to like it? I said, they're going to love it. Believe me, trust me, they'll love it. Okay, good. And that was a turning point for him. I had the same thing with Fedorov one time. Sergei was very, very quiet. And we did the same thing. If you don't like it, we won't use it. And to your love of the golf game, I said, you play golf? Let's talk about other things. Play guitar, play Atari, whatever these games are. Play golf, do whatever. Play golf. Yeah, he said, I play golf, Mickey. Sometimes ball go right. Sometimes ball go left. Sometimes balls stay with me. And I looked at him, I said, you mean you whiffed? He goes, yeah, I whiffed. Same thing, end of the deal. Do you think they're going to like it? Sergei, they can't not like it. They loved it. So that was kind of a turning point for those guys that I was able to earn their trust. And it was all about entertainment. Back to that again. Show these people what you're really like off the ice as a human being. Never mind the hockey player stuff. So they got real comfortable with that. Thank goodness they did. And those memories, we're just very fortunate to have them, and they can't take them away.
Well, it's about trust, by being yourself and earning that trust. Because you and I have talked about DTA from Sylvester Stallone. Don't trust anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Well, those are magical stories. Did they know, Mick? Did they know that? Did Vladdy know that you can sing?
No, probably not. No.
You're an exceptional singer. I've heard you sing.
From time to time.
Okay, so now this is a moving. If it's a moving story for me, I can only imagine what the magnifier is for you. Not so many years ago, you mentioned you and Dave Strader on the Ilitch's plane coming back from some Western places and those bonding sessions when Mr. I passed away. Family asked you to speak at the funeral. What do you remember about it? I want to ask you a couple of questions. I know I think you had a game in Dallas the night before, and you came home, and I love it when you call me and you say, Trip or Trace, you'll go either way. I'm icing from the inside out in the kitchen. Tell me about to be asked to speak on behalf of the Ilitch and Mike, Mr. I, what you remember about what went into what you said.
Well, yeah, it was a great honor to be asked to speak at that ceremony. I'm not sure how the message came to me sitting at the kitchen table. It was, I'm trying to think of the singer. I don't remember the singer. It was a song called My Best Friend. And I played this thing on, I think it was on my phone, and I thought, who it was? I think it was Don Williams. Don Williams, My Best Friend. And basically, I was going to say this to Mrs. Illich, who was sitting right in the front row, or would be. And it had to be close to 3 o'clock in the morning by the time I figured this thing out. What was I going to say? And the next day, they said, there was a big buzz around that Fox Theater and got a special guest coming in and all this kind of stuff. I didn't know who it was. And I'm upstairs in the green room, and next thing I know, it's George Bush. Well, George and Mr. I had known each other through the baseball when he had the Texas team, and Mr. I had the Tigers. And so I remember thinking, once I found out who it was, I've had a lot of line changes, I thought to myself, in my NHL career. But I've never replaced a right winger like this one, George Bush. It was crazy. Yeah, and he's sitting right down by Mrs. I when I'm up there after. It was pretty special stuff. But that song by Don Williams had all the very special words that Mike would have said to Marion, but you're my rock in troubled waters and all that kind of stuff. And it was a very special moment for sure for me, for the family to ask me to speak like that. So I don't know how to react to those things. I just feel blessed to be able to do it. Stress and pressure, yeah, but you know what? In the end, it all works out, and it's all about people, all about caring, it's all about family, and putting your best foot forward. We're not all perfect, by far, on any given night, but as long as we're, trying to help other people and be kind to other people, and help those less fortunate, which the hockey world does a lot of all over the world, on every franchise, then that's what we're here to do. And if we can put a smile on a face, especially the kids. When we go out without a Red Wing alumni, started in 1958, we've helped raise more than $5-6 million. Jimmy Peters and the gang back then. And the people will say, gosh, it was so great to have you guys here. And I go, you have no idea what it means for us in here to do it, to see those children smiling, for us to be here to help somebody go into their pocket, give some money, time, energy, whatever it is, to help these causes. It is absolutely priceless, and we are in such a position that we can do it. Yeah. But we need to pull the trigger and do it. Fulfill that obligation that we have as former Red Wings.
I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to do it, but you sang that song.
No, I didn't sing it.
No, I know you didn't. You sang it for me.
I said
sang it for me.
I wish I had have sang
right,
it that day.
I know you did. You told me
I didn't have enough time to get brave enough to do it.
Well, I've heard you sing it. And quite honestly, you could be at the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah, it's.
You want to take a quick lyric? It's up to you.
No.
But Mick, it was all world. Because the thing is,
3 in the morning, and here's 3 in the afternoon.
There hasn't been any icing from the inside out.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you, concluding with before we get to the present, any one of those Red Wing Cups, 97, 98, 2002, 2008, particularly special in your view?
Hard not to be 97 because it went 42 years without it. And all those disappointments I mentioned, 95, 6, and everything there. 94, getting beat by either Toronto or San Jose, 93. Jamie Baker's goal off the boards. All kinds of crazy stuff. I'd have to go with 97 because of the Colorado thing. 08 was against you guys. No, 02 was against you guys. Was it triple overtime that Larionov scored?
Yeah.
Jeez. I was on the air that night, back here to Detroit till about 2 in the morning. And then we flew on a private plane back.
Yeah.
And then came back.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was great. It was great. You flew in there the afternoon of the game, and you're all ready to go. And, of course, it's the Stanley Cup Finals. My God, if you can't get up for that, you don't belong in the game.
Yeah.
And the way that bloody game unfolded, oh, my God, unbelievable, And it was a turning point, for sure. Because we were 1-1 at that point, right?
Yeah.
And, if you guys get Game 3, you're up 2-1. You're at home for Game 4. Yeah. The confidence and momentum thing is so huge. It was unbelievable. I mean, all those moments where you're on the edge of your seat. That overtime hockey in the NHL is the greatest thing in the world. I mean, it's live or die. You're right on the edge of the cliff. That's what makes it so great. You know, Dandino jumping up in the air.
Yeah.
What's your goalie's name?
Arthur Zerbe.
Arthur
and
Zerbe.
He played.
And he's so small.
Yeah.
You know, down he goes, and,
Yeah.
and Lariano backhands it up high. I mean, yeah. I'd have to say 97, though, because of the drought and because of the Colorado brawl with Draper and Lemieux and then the goalies and all that stuff in the first in 42 years. I'd say 97 was, probably the jump out at everybody.
2002, because I can remember it vividly. And you know how close I am with Rod Brindamore. And this makes his cup lift in 2006, I think, that much more special. But the Canes, 1-1 in the series, had a lead late in game 3, right around a minute to play. And Rod, who had lived with Steve Yzerman in 98 in Nagano playing for Team Canada, Rod loved Steve Yzerman. Rod didn't lose many draws cleanly. Steve beat him. Fedorov was on the point. Tape to tape, Lidstrom gets it through because his head's always up, and Brett Hull tips it. I mean, Hall of Fame to Hall of Fame to Hall of Fame. I mean, that is fixed in my mind. And of course, for Rod, I think it made winning the cup 4 years later that much more gratifying.
That's the whole point of hockey. I remember my dad saying to me, "You're going to try to go through those two defensemen 1-on-2 9 times in a row, and you're going to fail. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try the 10th time. That's when you'll make it happen." That's the game of hockey. It knocks you down, and the key is that you don't stay down. You got to get back up, and that's what Brindamore did. So he lost a draw. Disappointing at the time, but you know what? That's the game. The game has a way to make you very humble very quickly, and it never lets you forget where you came from. And that's why hockey players are usually so very special. They never forget where they came from, and that's why everybody loves to be around them.
One more, Scotty, because I believe you met Scotty years before in Peterborough. What was it like being Scotty's analyst?
I was a stick boy
Yeah.
in Peterborough. And I used to get, my pay was $2 and a new stick every Thursday night in Peterborough. Boy, I was in high cotton in those days, back in 62, right around there. I played for the Peach when I was 15, and Bowman was gone. But yeah, Scotty was a different dude. I told a story about Scotty not long ago where he came down the hallway one day and he'd get on a mission. Boy, there was nothing stopping. He had that head up in the air, the nose was up in the air. And one of our interns said, "Geez, that Bowman's a weird dude." I said, "You think so? He's a lot better than he used to be." he's really. Oh, he was a piece of work. But what a hockey man. Oh, my God. He was unbelievable. And he told a story about convincing my mother not to let me go to Oshawa to play with Orr. Ren Blair, who ran that team, ran the Dunlops in Oslo, Norway. And he was with Boston. He was bringing Orr out of Parry Sound. And he wanted me to come up from Peterborough just to play as a 14-year-old and don't even practice, just play. I would have been a Boston Bruin for a $200 signing and signing a C-form, like Orr did. Played for the Oshawa Generals. And then who knows if I would have made Boston or not. But Scotty jumped in, convinced he knew my mother and dad because my dad was the only hockey guy on the board. Convinced him, "Don't let your son go over there. That's not good for him. Wait another year." Bowman. He was doing his tricks even back then.
Yeah.
But what a hockey man. Hockey's, I think, Scotty's greatest attribute, among being a great guy, great human being, is that he was able to adjust and adapt to the modern-day athlete. When all those Russians came over here, he had to change from the old school for sure. Man, oh man. And Scotty, by the way, he was the coach of the St. Louis Blues, the 2 cups we won in Montreal. He had Jacques Plante, Glenn Hall, the Plager brothers, Red Berenson, that whole crew over there. Unbelievable. So he's quite a dude, Scotty. Quite a guy.
You call it like you see it. Did he? You mentioned that when you were on the plane with Mr. I, and you mentioned the fact, not once has my owner ever come to me. Did Scotty ever?
No.
Never. That's cool.
No, I don't.
That's not the case everywhere.
Scotty doing that.
That's not the case everywhere.
What did Scotty one day? What did he say to me one day? He used to. The odd time I'd fly in a private plane. I don't know why this was going on. And Scotty, he knew I was there, but we'd get back home and then he'd look at me and go, "Hey, Mickey, were you in Buffalo?" He was just pulling my chain. He knew damn well I was in Buffalo.
Yeah, rhetorical
but
question.
he was busting my rear end because I came in on a plane and he was sour. One time I remember they had to take a bus somewhere and he was all sour because he wasn't on a private plane. No, not this time, Scotty. Maybe next. Oh yeah, no, he was great. He was great.
How do you, Mick? You are the guru of all gurus. We just dug in with Dylan Larkin. I'm really excited about this young Red Wing core. Of course, Steve at the helm. How do you assess the current situation of the Red Wings?
Well, obviously, last year was really it really wasn't indicative of that team. If it was going to go wrong, it went wrong last year, with injuries and all kinds of problems, and obviously they were underskilled at a lot of positions. But what we tried to focus on, for good reason, was Larkin, Bertuzzi, Mantha, Hronek, Robbie Fabry, what's the kid's name? The Czech, I keep forgetting his name. Zadina. Who I'm forgetting probably a couple guys, but that's a pretty darn good core. This thing's in an obvious rebuild. I mean, we hung on as long as we could, trying to be competitive, coming off that 25 to 30 year run, and probably in retrospect we've hung on a year or two too long. But you know what? Now you got to rebuild, and I think Yzerman, he's very well thought out. He's very methodical. He's not in a position where he needs to go out and spend big money on high-end free agents right now because it's probably going to make a lot of difference. 2 years from now will be a different story. I think the foundation is there. The key for us through this rebuild is not to lose the culture of the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
The culture is your foundation. If you lose that, very, very difficult to get it back. Very difficult. So I think through Larkin, you probably found out yesterday talking to him, he's a Red Wing. He understands what it means to know who number 10 Alex Delvecchio was, and Gordie Howe and Sid Abel and Ted Lindsay and on and on and on. That's the history and the foundation of that crest.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be protected overall. So I think their foundation is good with 6, 7 guys. It's basically a 30-year team, and they'll be more competitive this year. How much? Who knows? We don't know what we're facing this year. But these kids are just getting to a certain point where now they're not getting their feet wet anymore. They got their feet in the door, these guys that I just mentioned. And I think they can make a much bigger difference as we go forward with the additions of the people that we brought in. And like people like Sider, who we drafted a year ago, that kid will probably be here. And who knows who else, Valeno, maybe Rasmussen, all those kids. It's going to start to show some benefits. They haven't showed yet, but they will.
I did talk to Dylan about it because, no team has ever had a more consistent, historic, impressive culture than the Detroit Red Wings. So what are the things you're looking for to make sure? And I was really impressed with him. What are the things you're looking for just to make sure that proud culture during this time of transition, that it doesn't fall off at all?
For sure. I mean, well, what am I looking for that doesn't happen? Well, I think that's up to Yzerman to read the tea leaves on those players that he's bringing in. Is it in their heart? Are they guys that will dig in and understand that and contribute to that, instead of some guys you'll have just want to make money, and you'll go, well, we can't win with them, move them on. You want people to buy in, understand what it's all about, what it means to be an NHLer, what it means to be a Red Wing, and if you're good at what you do, the money will follow. That's probably the priorities that Steve has set. We got to have good citizens here first, and we'll go from there.
Great stuff. Okay. Usually we don't talk this much about hockey, you and I. Mick, you could be, I don't know, the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world, that beer commercial. He went to the moon or something. You could be the most interesting man in the world.
Well,
okay? Whether it be things you do outdoors that you love outdoors, you build. Tell me about the things that you enjoy most when, you left the Joe or you leave LCA.
I don't talk hockey a lot normally.
No, you don't.
Because you get enough of it,
Yeah.
doing what we do.
Yeah.
But I like the outdoors and for sure, and driving backhoes and digging holes and building things and getting educated to different things. That's the fun part of life. And got property in the UP, and what's interesting is that you're never around here at this time of the year.
Yeah.
And you've got an eye opener as to, as much as the weather can be crazy, it's Michigan. It's a beautiful state.
Oh.
You get the changes of the seasons. As much as it's nice to say, I'm going to Florida and it's warm, it is what it is. You dress for the weather. For me, Michigan is just an incredible place to be in the Midwest. So, I don't know. I just like doing a lot of things to get away from the game. When you get, I had, Howie Meeker was a good friend of mine, just passed away. And Howie said to me one day when we were out there in Vancouver Island, we were drinking Newfoundland rum, watching Hockey Night in Canada, having a hot stove, talking hockey, and eating salmon, fresh salmon right out of the ocean. And Howie said, his wife's name was Grace. He said, I told Grace, when I drive out of this driveway, I belong to them. And what he meant was he had an obligation to the hockey fans to give them what they wanted. He was a very special guy, Howie, but a very interesting comment to make that, when you do what we do, you're in a public position. What you say, you got to be careful what you say sometimes or how you say it, because kids are watching, and kids are always going to repeat. So there's a responsibility, I think, a great responsibility that goes with putting your mouth behind a microphone on any given day. And boy, it only takes one mistake to ruin a lot of good things that you've done. So I think it's a very special opportunity to be a part of the game that I've loved. I mean, over my life, started in the NHL in 1967. So that's 53 years ago, I guess, or whatever. But that brotherhood is very special. I could never have drawn up what it's become here in Detroit for me and my family. It's been incredible. We're having a ball. And whenever I can get away from the game, I do, because, like I said, you go down that rink and, boom, you're plugged in. You drive out of that driveway, bang, you're on, you're on. And it's nice to be off when you get a chance to be, if you can. But it's also very special to be thinking about when am I next going to be on, and then you're prepping for that, whether it's talking to other color guys or other people in the game or just doing a little bit of homework on certain things and what have you. It's a very special situation. The game is special, and I think it provides a very special opportunity for all of us that do what we do. We're blessed to be able to be a part of the great game.
No doubt. And I want to tell you, since my first fall here and now winter since 1991 with these conditions, so I'm going up to deer camp, and I didn't know if I was going to be here. So you and I talked for the better portion of that whole trek up I-75. I was going to Alpena. And you discover the fact, Trace, you don't have any flannel? And
Right.
You're going to be around the fire?
Right.
I can't have you bending the elbow, tipping the elbow, looking, you've got to look proper. And so I want to thank you for the people tuning in on YouTube.
The Carhartt folks
Yes.
are responsible for that.
Thank you.
And they're glad that I gave it to you, and that you can take it back down to Carolina with you and introduce everybody to it down there.
Absolutely, with a ton of pride.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Mick, I close with, it's remarkable for me, and I think it's because I grew up with you. And I think because you guys were in the West and the Hurricanes in the East, so didn't see a ton for a while. I was actually, it's shocking to me. I was actually intimidated to get to know you, and now you've become the closest of friends, a mentor on all fronts, and the guy that I know, I think would have just dug in. But I want to ask you, as much as you mean to me in closing, beating cancer, learning that you're celiac, did you learn anything about yourself that you didn't already know in the way that you dealt with those two stiff challenges, fork in the road, and just dug in through it.
Did I learn anything that I didn't already know? Probably a few things. But again, I think we're bred to accept whatever comes your way and do whatever you have to do to battle. Twice I've had lung cancer and was fortunate enough to be surgically removed. But, those weren't fun times, but you go, you know what? My mother used to say, when your ticket's up, it's up, Mickey. I never understood it really, but I guess I do now. I think probably you learn to appreciate what you've got more every day. It's not easy to do because we're just not bred that way, It's too easy to forget. But every time you look around, I see people who are maybe struggling and got some problems going on, and I go, you know what? You're on a golf course. Look at those blue skies and those white, beautiful, fluffy clouds. Appreciate that. Who cares whether you make 6 on a par 4? Who gives a damn? It doesn't matter. The fact is, you're out here in fresh air. Enjoy what you've got while you can, because especially with all this stuff going on today, with the pandemic, you never know. So saying thanks to whoever you say thanks to is probably worthy every chance we get to do so, and appreciate what we've got, knowing that we're blessed to have what we've got, and it don't get any better than that. That's it.
My expectations for that episode, because of what I think of Mickey and what Mickey means to me, were probably as high as a certain part of a giraffe's anatomy. I actually was in South Africa about 12 years ago and looked up. That giraffe and that particular part of its anatomy is way up there. That's how high my expectations were, and Mickey surpassed it. That was really, really good stuff. So thank you, Mickey. Mickey is a dear friend of little Tony Galbo, who happens to have come up with a visor idea, digintrip.com. Before I get to our merchandise, thank you once again to Whiskey 6. This place, Zagat can't get in here to rate it right now, but Zagat would give perfection across the board for total variety of food. You can find out and really dig into the menu at whiskey6.com. And by the way, that is spelling out 6, not the number 6. And even though I can't 10 bar for you and pour you a drink like Sam Malone, like we're in Boston at Cheers, I think this place is even more cozy, for the record. Cliff Clavin would agree. But, if you're ordering something, whether it be this beautiful pizza, this delectable burger, I'd have to ride my Peloton for a bit, but my God, these pretzel, salt just like I like it, breadsticks, absolutely salivating. You can also order beer, full wine selection. I encourage you to do it directly, because like Mickey was talking about, you want to be direct. You don't want to go in a zigzagging form. That's not how you score. That's not how you finish. So if you're in the Detroit area, 313-939-2403. If Uber Eats or DoorDash is your thing, you can also go through that vehicle to enjoy everything that Whiskey 6 has to offer. Mickey, at the conclusion of our episode, just spent about 20 minutes in here looking at every detail. A Whiskey 6 vehicle from Prohibition that had to scurry down here to get the booze from Canada. This thing is, it's Ford Blue. It's gorgeous. The wood. It's everything. When I go on the road for the NHL, it's everything I look for in terms of coziness, nestling conditions, places I like to sit down and talk hockey, maybe get a little loose, ice from the inside out, where you forget about time. And Whiskey 6 is that way. And until these doors can open, we need to make sure we support this carry-out menu. Enjoy yourself with some beer, unlimited beer, wine, when you make that carry-out order. So thank you to Whiskey 6. And like I said, Tony Galbo, we were playing a golf course about 3-4 miles from here. And he said, you got to get visors. You got to get visors on digintrip.com. So we did it. Visors have been a great seller. They're very good looking, whether it's the golf season or not. And our entire digintrip.com merchandise, expanded hats, hoodies, winter collection. As I mentioned at the top of the show, got my mom a throw blanket. All of our sales between now and in a few weeks, New Year's Eve, half of them will go to the Pope Francis Center right down the road here in a very frigid Detroit, people that need our help the most. So hopefully you bear that in mind. Until the next time, keep again being active on the forecheck and communicating with us on our audio and YouTube platforms. So we know how we can continue to propel forward with our New Year's resolutions from here. And in doing so, we'll see you the next time, Digging In with Trip. Make sure you always know when you look in the mirror, that reflection doesn't lie. Are you digging in? Like people dig in here at Whiskey 6. You'll know when you look in that mirror, and if you don't like what you see, it's never too late. Rigorous honesty will allow you to grab your shovel and get that next load in there. Until the next time, I know that was awfully deep of me, but we all have the option to do it. It's one of the controllables. Let's all control it. I better stop talking now. See you later. I'm gonna have a drink.
We're digging in with Trip today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today,